I had every right to conduct that inspection.
You intimidated my daughter and abused your power.
Jessica was screaming through my phone. Marcus, I'm watching your security feed. Diane's in the changing room with Sophia. She just ordered her to remove her swimsuit. I'm calling 911. Get there now. I was already running. The community pool was 90 seconds from my house. 90 seconds to stop the HOA pool chair from assaulting my 14-year-old daughter. I'm a family law attorney, 12 years prosecuting institutional child abuse. I know exactly what crime the former vice principal was committing, and my law partner was watching it happen in real time through security cameras Diane Hartwell didn't know existed. If you've ever watched someone weaponize authority to hurt your child, you'll understand, so hit that subscribe button now. I'm Marcus Reed, attorney specializing in cases where authority figures, teachers, coaches, youth leaders, prey on children. I've represented dozens of victims, know the patterns, know the laws, know how predators use positions of power to access minors' bodies. I just never imagined the predator would target my daughter, in the pool where my wife taught her to swim before cancer killed her. But I need you to understand why that pool mattered, why Diane's violation was about more than HOA rules. My wife Vanessa died 3 years ago, stage 4 breast cancer, 18 months from diagnosis to death. She spent her final healthy weeks at that community pool with Sophia, teaching our daughter to swim, between chemo sessions, while losing her hair, while dying. The northeast corner of the pool was their spot, where Vanessa held Sophia in the water, teaching her strokes, building confidence, creating joyful memories during the hardest time, where my wife was truly happy in those final months, watching our daughter master something new, giving her this gift of confidence and movement. Swimming became Sophia's primary way of coping with grief. She'd go to the pool every day after Vanessa died, swim laps, feel connected to her mother through the physical memory of water and motion. That pool wasn't just community amenity. It was the last place Sophia felt her mother's presence. Then Diane Hartwell, pool committee chair, started targeting my daughter. Started with violation notices. Sophia's athletic one-piece swimsuit allegedly violated modesty standards. The board chair demanded Sophia submit to compliance inspection to verify her swimsuit met coverage requirements. I'd refused. No adult has right to inspect my daughter's body under any HOA authority. Now the former educator had cornered Sophia alone, was forcing her to strip in a changing room, while claiming HOA inspection powers justified examining a 14-year-old's body. I could hear Jessica on speakerphone, talking to 911. Sexual assault of a minor in progress. Adult female forcing teenager to disrobe. Community pool changing room. Her voice was shaking. Jessica Park, criminal defense attorney who'd cross-examined hundreds of witnesses without flinching, was watching my daughter being violated and couldn't physically stop it. Only document it. Only preserve evidence while I ran. Police are 2 minutes out, Jessica said. Marcus, I have everything recorded. Video, audio, timestamp. She just said, remove the swimsuit so I can verify fabric thickness. She's telling Sophia to turn around. I was at the pool gate, could see the changing room, heard Sophia crying, that sound no father should ever hear. The sound of his child being violated by someone who thought authority protected her from consequences. What Diane didn't know, I'd installed comprehensive security systems 6 months ago after previous HOA harassment, given Jessica remote access while she reviewed footage for an unrelated property case. She'd happened to be watching when the pool committee chair cornered my daughter. Every word Diane said, every order to strip, every claim of inspection authority was recorded, time-stamped, witnessed live by an attorney who immediately called police. I burst through the changing room door. Sophia was in her swimsuit again, crying, traumatized. Diane Hartwell stood there looking annoyed at the interruption. Mr. Reed, I'm conducting a compliance inspection. HOA pool committee has authority to verify. You assaulted my daughter. My voice was controlled, attorney mode. You ordered a minor to remove her clothing. That's sexual battery under Georgia law. I have HOA authority. You have nothing. Police are arriving. You're being arrested. And I'm the attorney who's going to make sure you're convicted and registered as a sex offender. Sirens approaching. The woman who'd forced my daughter to strip in the space where Vanessa taught her to swim was about to learn that no HOA authority justifies assaulting children, and I had perfect video evidence of every word she'd said. Detective Sarah Morrison arrived with 2 patrol officers, Crimes Against Children Unit. I'd worked with her on 3 previous cases, teachers who'd abused students, a youth pastor who'd violated minors. She knew institutional predators when she saw them. Mr. Reed, Sarah's eyes went to Sophia first. My daughter sitting on the bench, arms wrapped around herself, still crying. Then to Diane. Ma'am, I'm Detective Morrison. I need you to step outside. The pool committee chair pulled herself up. Authoritative. Former vice principal, addressing misbehaving students. Detective, I was conducting a routine compliance inspection, as authorized by HOA pool committee regulations. This is a misunderstanding. You ordered a 14-year-old to remove her clothing. For swimsuit verification, the pool rules clearly state that all attire must meet modesty standards, and committee chairs have inspection authority. Ma'am, turn around, hands behind your back. Diane's face went from confident to confused. I don't understand. I have HOA authority to enforce pool rules. You assaulted a minor. You're under arrest. Sarah was already cuffing her. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. This is absurd. I'm the pool committee chair. I was performing my duties. I pulled out my phone, showed Sarah the text from Jessica. Video preserved. Attorney Jessica Park witnessed assault live via security feed. Called 911 at 3:47 p.m. Recording shows Diane Hartwell ordering Sophia Reed to remove swimsuit, claiming HOA inspection authority. Audio clear, timestamp verified. Sarah read it, looked at Diane. We have video of you forcing a child to strip, and a witness, an attorney, who watched it happen in real time and immediately reported it. You're being charged with sexual battery against a minor. The former educator's mask cracked. Sexual battery? I was inspecting swimwear compliance. The HOA board voted to give me enforcement powers. No HOA board can vote to give you authority to inspect children's bodies. That's not enforcement. That's assault. They led Diane out in handcuffs. She was still protesting. This is a mistake. I've been pool committee chair for 5 years. I've conducted dozens of compliance inspections. I felt my blood go cold. Dozens. Sarah caught it too, stopped, looked at the board chair. You've done this before? Ordered other minors to remove clothing for inspections? Diane seemed to realize her mistake. The pool rules require verification of appropriate coverage standards. It's committee policy. How many children have you inspected? I don't keep count of routine enforcement. Sarah's expression hardened. We'll be investigating every complaint you filed, every teenager you've had contact with. Every parent who might not have known their child was subjected to this. After they took the former vice principal to the station, I sat with Sophia, my daughter who'd just been violated in the changing room adjacent to where her mother taught her to swim, who'd been ordered to strip by someone she'd been taught to respect as authority. Dad, I'm sorry. Sophia's voice was barely audible. She said if I didn't comply, you'd be fined $10,000 and I'd be banned from the pool forever. I didn't want to lose swimming. It's where I feel close to Mom. Sophia, you did nothing wrong. Nothing. An adult used her position to intimidate you. That's not your fault. But I took off my swimsuit. I listened to her. Because you're 14, and she's an adult in authority. That's exactly how predators operate. They use power imbalances to make children comply. I pulled her close. What she did is criminal. You're a victim, and I'm going to make sure she's prosecuted. Jessica called. Marcus, I've reviewed the complete footage. It's worse than I thought. Worse how? The timestamp shows Diane arrived at the pool at 3:30. She didn't confront Sophia immediately. She waited, watched her swim for 15 minutes, then approached only after you left for your home office. She timed this for when Sophia was alone. Premeditation. The pool committee chair had stalked my daughter, waited until no parent was present, then cornered her in a changing room. There's more, Jessica said. I went back through archived footage from the past 2 months. Diane has photographed Sophia in her swimsuit at least 6 times, took pictures with her phone, claimed it was for violation documentation. Marcus, she has photos of your daughter. Send everything to Detective Morrison, every timestamp, every photo, every moment the former educator targeted Sophia. At the police station, Sarah was processing Diane's arrest when I arrived. Mr. Reed, your law partner sent the complete security footage. This is the most documented assault case I've handled. Video of the approach, audio of the orders to strip, timestamp proving premeditation. live witness testimony from an attorney. We have everything. Detective, Diane said she's done dozens of compliance inspections. How many other teenage girls has she violated? That's what we're investigating. I'm pulling all pool committee records, every complaint she's filed, every teenager she's had contact with. Sarah looked at the interrogation room where the board chair sat. In my experience, predators who feel this entitled don't stop at one victim. They have patterns, and your daughter might not be the first child she's assaulted under color of HOA authority. Patricia Chen showed up at my house that evening. HOA board member, pediatric nurse at Children's Healthcare. I'd seen her at pool meetings, always sitting beside Diane taking notes, looking uncomfortable. Now she stood on my porch, hands shoved deep in her jacket pockets, pulled them out, shoved them back in. Her shoulders were hunched forward like she was trying to make herself smaller. Mr. Reed, can we talk? Not here. My house? I need to tell you something about what happened to Sophia, about what the pool committee chair has been doing. We went to her home 3 streets over. Patricia led me to her kitchen, poured coffee neither of us would drink, then stood by the window instead of sitting. Her hands kept moving, gripping the counter, touching her face, wrapping around her waist. I'm a pediatric nurse, 23 years. I know what predatory behavior looks like in institutional settings. She wouldn't look at me directly, kept her eyes on the counter, the window, anywhere but my face. I've seen Diane's interactions with teenage girls at the pool for 2 years, and I didn't report it. What did you see? Patricia's jaw clenched, unclenched. Last summer, the Martinez girl, Elena, 15. She was wearing a regular bikini, completely appropriate for a teenager. The former vice principal pulled her aside, made her come to the changing room for coverage verification. Elena's mother wasn't there. I watched Diane take the girl into that changing room alone. Elena came out crying. Did you ask what happened? I asked Elena if she was okay. She said the board chair made her take off her bikini top to measure coverage percentage. Said Diane told her it was HOA policy that all teenage girls had to be inspected to ensure modesty compliance. Patricia's hands were shaking now, gripping the counter edge. I'm a mandated reporter. I work with children every day. I knew that wasn't appropriate. Knew it was predatory. Why didn't you report it? She finally looked at me, guilt written across every line of her face. Because my son David is a senior, applying to colleges. Diane wrote his recommendation letters. She's friends with admissions officers at 3 universities from her 30 years in education. She mentioned, casually, how unfortunate it would be if someone on the board opposed her enforcement methods and she had to withdraw her support for David's applications. She threatened your son's college prospects if you reported her. She never said it directly, just talked about how board solidarity was important, how she valued members who understood the necessity of strict pool enforcement, how David's applications were very promising as long as nothing disrupted their collaborative relationship. Patricia's voice was hollow. I chose my son's college acceptance over protecting teenage girls from being violated. I've been living with that for 18 months. How many girls did you see her target? Elena Martinez, the Thompson twins, both 16, Sarah Wu, just turned 14. At least 3 others I saw her photograph in their swimsuits, claiming it was for compliance documentation. Patricia pulled out her phone, showed me notes she'd been keeping, dates, names, descriptions. I documented everything because I knew it was wrong, knew someone should be tracking the pattern, but I was too afraid of what the pool committee chair would do to David if I spoke up. Patricia, then I heard what happened to Sophia, heard Diane was arrested, and I realized all those girls I watched get victimized, all the times I stayed silent because I was afraid of college recommendation letters, all of it was enabling a predator to keep operating. Her voice cracked. Your daughter was assaulted because I didn't have the courage to report what I saw 18 months ago. I looked at the pediatric nurse who'd chosen her son's future over other people's daughters, who'd documented predatory behavior but stayed silent, who was finally breaking because guilt had become unbearable. Patricia, what you saw, the other girls Diane inspected, that's evidence, pattern evidence. Shows this wasn't isolated incident with Sophia, shows systematic predatory behavior. I know, that's why I'm here. She handed me her phone with the documented incidents. I'll testify. I'll provide everything I know, every girl I saw her target, every inappropriate interaction, every time she used pool compliance as cover to access teenage girls' bodies. Diane will retaliate. She'll withdraw David's recommendations. Letter. Some things matter more than college applications, like making sure the former educator doesn't assault any more children. Patricia met my eyes. I'm a pediatric nurse. I took an oath to protect children. I violated that oath for 18 months because I was afraid. I'm done being afraid. I looked at her documentation. 6 girls total over 2 years, all between 13 and 16, all inspected in the changing room, all photographed in swimwear, all targeted when parents weren't present. The board chair had been running a systematic operation, using HOA pool authority to gain access to minors' bodies. And Patricia Chen had documented the entire pattern while staying silent because her son needed college recommendation letters. Detective Morrison needs to see this, every name, every date, every detail you observed. I'll call her tonight. And Mr. Reed, Patricia's voice was barely audible. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't protect Sophia. Didn't protect any of them. The conflicted witness had finally chosen protecting children over protecting her son's college prospects, had finally broken silence about the pool committee chair's predatory pattern. Now we had 6 victims, documented evidence spanning 2 years, and a pediatric nurse willing to testify about what she'd witnessed while serving on the board. The former vice principal thought she'd committed one isolated assault. She'd actually built a pattern of predation that was about to be exposed completely. Diane Hartwell's arraignment was scheduled 48 hours after her arrest. County courthouse packed with media. Local news had picked up the story. HOA official arrested for assaulting teen in pool changing room. I sat in the gallery with Jessica, watching the former educator in orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, being led to the defendant's table. Her attorney, Richard Morrison, expensive HOA lawyer who'd represented Riverside Heights for 6 years, looked uncomfortable. Judge Catherine Bradford called the case. State of Georgia versus Diane Hartwell. Charges: sexual battery against a child under 16, false imprisonment, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. How does defendant plead? Not guilty, Your Honor. Richard stood. My client was performing lawful duties as HOA pool committee chair. The alleged assault was a routine compliance inspection authorized by community governing documents. Your client ordered a 14-year-old to remove her clothing, the prosecutor interrupted. Assistant DA Marcus Chen, no relation to Patricia, was handling the case personally. That's sexual battery, not HOA enforcement. The Pool Rules Amendment 2024-03 explicitly grants committee chairs authority to conduct compliance inspections of pool attire. Ms. Hartwell was verifying that the minor's swimsuit met coverage standards. By forcing her to strip in a changing room, Judge Bradford looked at the defense attorney with undisguised disgust. Mr. Morrison, are you seriously arguing that HOA pool rules authorize adults to inspect children's bodies? Not inspect bodies, Your Honor. Verify attire compliance. There's a legal distinction. There's no distinction when you're ordering a minor to disrobe. That's assault, period. The judge turned to the prosecutor. What's the state seeking for bail? $500,000 cash bond. Defendant has history as school administrator. Access to children for 30 years. We're investigating whether there are additional victims from her time as vice principal. She's a flight risk and danger to community minors. Richard protested. Your Honor, Ms. Hartwell has no criminal history. She's a respected community leader who was arrested for sexually assaulting a child. Judge Bradford's tone was ice. I'm setting bail at $500,000 cash. Defendant is prohibited from any contact with minors, prohibited from entering any HOA facilities, and must surrender her passport. Preliminary hearing in 10 days. The board chair's face went white. $500,000. She couldn't make that bail. After the arraignment, Detective Morrison found me in the courthouse hallway. Mr. Reed, we've made contact with 5 of the 6 girls Patricia Chen identified. All confirm similar experiences. Forced changing room inspections, photographed in swimwear, intimidated with threats of pool bans and family fines. 5 victims willing to testify? 4 definite. 1 family is hesitant, afraid of retaliation. But we have Patricia's documentation, your security footage, and a pattern spanning 2 years. Sarah pulled out her phone. There's something else. We executed search warrant on Diane's house this morning. Found her personal computer. And? Folder labeled Pool Compliance Documentation. Contains photographs of 32 teenage girls in swimwear, some dated back 3 years, all taken at community pool, all girls aged 13 to 16, all photographed without parental knowledge or consent. My stomach turned. 32 girls. The pool committee chair had been collecting photos of minors in swimsuits for 3 years, disguised as HOA violation documentation. That's possession of images of minors in states of undress. Even if they're in swimwear, the context, hidden folder, specific age range, no legitimate enforcement purpose. That's a separate charge. DA is reviewing. We're also investigating her time as vice principal. 28 years at Northside High. We're contacting the school district to review any complaints filed against her during that time. Jessica appeared beside me. Marcus, you need to see this. She showed me her phone. News article. Parents question pool officials' conduct after arrest. The article quoted 3 Riverside Heights families, all with teenage daughters, all describing uncomfortable interactions with the former vice principal. One mother, Diane photographed my daughter in her swimsuit last summer. Said it was for violation records. My daughter felt violated, but I thought it was just HOA procedure. It's spreading, Jessica said. Parents are realizing their daughters were targeted. Community is turning against her. That afternoon, the HOA insurance carrier sent notice to Riverside Heights Board. Sexual assault allegations against pool committee chair Diane Hartwell. Effective immediately, Riverside Heights HOA liability coverage is suspended pending resolution of criminal charges. Our policy explicitly excludes coverage for sexual misconduct, assault, or intentional criminal acts by HOA officials. Any civil claims arising from Ms. Hartwell's conduct will not be covered. If Ms. Hartwell is convicted, your association will be uninsurable unless she is permanently removed from all positions and banned from property. No insurance meant the HOA board members faced personal liability if families sued. Meant they couldn't operate pool facilities. Meant Diane's systematic predation was creating financial crisis for entire community. By evening, 3 board members had resigned. Emergency meeting called. Remaining members voted unanimously to remove the former educator from pool committee chair position, revoke all her access credentials, and ban her from community property pending criminal case resolution. Diane's attorney tried damage control. Issued statement. Ms. Hartwell's actions were consistent with her duties as pool committee chair and based on her good faith interpretation of HOA governing documents. Any characterization of sexual misconduct is false and defamatory. But the evidence kept mounting. 32 photos of teenage girls, 5 confirmed victims, Patricia Chen's documented pattern, my security footage, Jessica's live witness testimony. The board chair who'd thought HOA authority protected her was watching her defense crumble under weight of outside authority intervention. Police, prosecutors, judges, insurance companies, child protection advocates, media exposure, all because she'd assaulted the one child whose father was a family law attorney specializing in institutional abuse, and who had video evidence of every word she'd said. Jessica and I spent the next morning in my law office reviewing every second of archived security footage. 2 months of recordings. Every moment the pool committee chair had been at the community pool. Start from when Diane became aggressive about the swimsuit violations, I said. 6 weeks ago. That's when she first cited Sophia. Jessica pulled up the footage. We watched the former vice principal arrive at the pool, clipboard in hand, scanning the area like she was hunting for violations. Then her attention locked on Sophia swimming in the northeast corner, Vanessa's corner, and something shifted in her expression. Look at her face, Jessica said. That's not someone enforcing pool rules. That's someone targeting a specific person. We watched Diane photograph Sophia from multiple angles. Zoom in on her swimsuit, take notes, all while my daughter swam, unaware she was being documented. Sophia's swimsuit is identical to what she wore on the school swim team, I noted. There's nothing inappropriate about it. So, why is the board chair photographing her like she's found a violation? Jessica fast-forwarded through the next few weeks. Same pattern. Diane arriving, photographing Sophia, taking notes, building a file. She's not responding to violations, I realized. She's creating them, manufacturing justification. Then Jessica pulled up footage from 2 months earlier, before Sophia had been targeted. Marcus, look at this. A different teenage girl, maybe 15, swimming with friends. The pool committee chair approached, spoke to her. The girl's body language changed, shoulders hunched, defensive. Diane pointing toward the changing room. That's Elena Martinez, I said, recognizing her from Patricia's list. We watched Elena follow the former educator into the changing room, come out 10 minutes later, visibly upset. Diane made notes on her clipboard, looking satisfied. Pull up the dates Patricia gave us, cross-reference with the footage. Jessica created a timeline. Every girl Patricia had documented, every date. We found footage for 4 of them. May 15th, Elena Martinez. Approached at pool, taken to changing room, emerged crying. June 3rd, the Thompson twins. Both photographed extensively. Both taken to changing room separately. Both visibly uncomfortable after. July 22nd, Sarah Wu, just turned 14. Diane waited until Sarah's parents left, then approached. The pattern was undeniable. The board chair specifically targeted girls aged 13 to 16, always when parents weren't immediately present, always with the same approach: photograph, claim violation, demand changing room inspection. This is systematic predation, I said. She's using HOA authority as cover to access minors' bodies. Every interaction follows the same pattern. Jessica pulled up the day Sophia was assaulted. Look at the timestamp. Diane arrived at 3:30. You left for your home office at 3:32. I can see you on the footage walking away. She waited, watched Sophia swim alone for 15 minutes, then approached at 3:47. She stalked her, waited until no parent was present. It's premeditation. She didn't stumble onto a violation. She planned when to approach, calculated when you'd be gone, timed it perfectly. Jessica highlighted timestamps. And look, she checked around before approaching, made sure no other adults were watching. This is predator behavior. I'd prosecuted this pattern before. Teachers who groomed students, youth pastors who isolated victims, authority figures who used positions of trust to access children when they were vulnerable. How many girls total can we identify on the footage? Jessica ran the analysis. 9. 9 different teenage girls Diane approached, photographed, or isolated over 8 weeks. Combined with Patricia's list and the photos found on her computer, we're looking at over 30 victims spanning 3 years. This isn't an HOA official overzealously enforcing rules. This is an adult who systematically used community authority to gain access to teenage girls' bodies. Marcus, there's something else. Jessica pulled up footage from 3 years ago, shortly after Diane became pool committee chair. This is when the modesty standards were first implemented. Watch the board meeting. Footage showed the former educator presenting Pool Rules Amendment 2024-03, arguing that teenage girls' swimwear choices were becoming inappropriate, demanding enforcement authority to verify compliance, getting the board to vote in favor because she framed it as protecting community standards. She engineered the rules specifically to create justification for inspecting girls, I realized. The entire amendment was designed to give her access to minors under guise of enforcement. Jessica nodded grimly. 3-year plan. Create the rules. Build the authority. Target the victims. All while using HOA structure as legal cover. I pulled up my case files. 12 years of prosecuting institutional child abuse. Teachers, coaches, religious leaders. Every predator operated the same way. Establish authority, create isolation opportunities, groom compliance through fear of consequences. The pool committee chair had done exactly that. Used HOA rules she'd written herself. Used threat of fines and pool bans. Used adult authority over intimidated teenagers. We need to get this to Detective Morrison immediately. Every timestamp, every victim we can identify. Complete pattern analysis. Already compiling the report. Marcus, this is the most documented predator case I've ever seen. We have video of her stalking victims. We have the manufactured rules. We have 32 photos she collected. We have Patricia's insider testimony. We have your live documentation of the assault. And we have 9 families who don't know their daughters were targeted by someone they trusted to manage their community pool. The board chair who'd assaulted Sophia thought she'd committed one isolated act. She'd actually created a 3-year pattern of systematic predation that was now completely documented by the security cameras she didn't know existed, and the family law attorney whose professional expertise was identifying exactly this kind of institutional abuse. Dr. Amanda Foster's office was designed for children processing trauma. Soft colors, comfortable seating, toys and art supplies that helped young victims express what words couldn't capture. Sophia sat on the couch, arms wrapped around herself in the same protective posture she'd held since the assault. 3 days had passed. She hadn't been swimming, hadn't even looked at the pool through our back windows. Sophia, I'm Dr. Foster. I'm a psychologist who works with children and teenagers who've experienced traumatic events. Your dad asked me to talk with you about what happened at the pool. Is that okay? My daughter nodded. Barely. Can you tell me what you're feeling right now? About the pool, about swimming, about what happened? Sophia's voice was so quiet, I had to lean forward to hear. I don't want to go back, even though it's where Mom taught me to swim, even though I miss it. I can't go in that changing room. I can't be near where she couldn't finish. Where Diane Hartwell assaulted you. She said it was HOA rules, that I had to comply, or Dad would be fined thousands of dollars, that I'd lose pool access forever if I didn't let her inspect my swimsuit. Sophia was crying now. I thought I was protecting Dad. I thought if I just did what she said, everything would be okay. Dr. Foster made notes. Sophia, what happened wasn't your fault. An adult used her position of authority to intimidate you. That's predatory behavior. You responded the way most teenagers would, by trying to comply with someone who had power over you. But I took off my swimsuit. I listened to her. Because you're 14, and she's an adult who claimed she had authority to make you. That's not consent. That's coercion. Dr. Foster leaned forward. The fact that you were trying to protect your father shows how manipulative the former vice principal was. She used your love for your dad, your fear of consequences, and your respect for authority to make you comply with assault. After the session, Dr. Foster pulled me aside. Her expression was grave. Marcus, Sophia has acute post-traumatic stress related to the assault. She's experiencing intrusive thoughts, hypervigilance around the pool area, and avoidance behaviors. The pool, which was her primary grief coping mechanism after losing her mother, is now associated with trauma. How severe? Severe enough that she may never feel safe swimming there again. The space where Vanessa taught her has been violated by the board chair's actions. That's not just physical assault, it's the destruction of Sophia's emotional connection to her deceased mother. I felt something break inside me. The pool was the last place Sophia felt Vanessa's presence, where she processed grief through movement and water, where she maintained connection to her mother 3 years after cancer took her. The pool committee chair hadn't just assaulted my daughter's body, she destroyed the sacred space where Sophia felt her mother's love. Dr. Foster, what does Sophia need? Long-term trauma therapy, possibly EMDR for the PTSD, and honestly, Marcus, she needs to see consequences for what was done to her. Teenage victims of authority figure abuse often struggle with feelings of powerlessness. Seeing the justice system hold her abuser accountable can be part of healing. There will be consequences. I'm making sure of that. That evening, I called Detective Morrison. Sarah, I need to know, how solid is the criminal case? With your security footage, Jessica's live witness testimony, Patricia Chen's documentation, and the photos found on Diane's computer. It's the most documented sexual assault case I've handled. We have video of premeditation, audio of the assault, pattern evidence from multiple victims, and physical evidence in the form of 32 collected images. What are we looking at for charges? DA is filing multiple counts. Sexual battery against a minor for Sophia, additional counts for the other confirmed victims, possession of images of minors in compromising circumstances, pattern of predatory behavior. Marcus, the former educator, is looking at serious prison time. Not enough. She destroyed my daughter's connection to her dead mother. Prison isn't enough. There's more. CPS opened investigation into whether Diane's conduct constitutes institutional child abuse. They're reviewing her entire time as pool committee chair, and they're coordinating with the school district to investigate her 30 years as vice principal at Northside High. You think there are victims from her time in education? Predators don't suddenly start at age 50. They have patterns that go back years. We're interviewing former students, reviewing old complaints, checking if any parents raised concerns that were dismissed. Sarah paused. Marcus, this could be decades of predation, and you caught her because you had the expertise to recognize what she was doing and the technology to document it. I looked at Sophia through the window. My daughter, who'd lost her mother to cancer, who'd found solace in the pool where Vanessa taught her to swim, who'd been targeted by a predator using HOA authority as cover. Sarah, I want every charge possible, every victim identified, every year of predation exposed. I want the former vice principal to face maximum consequences for every child she's harmed. You'll have it. Outside authority is converging. Police, prosecutors, CPS, school district investigators, insurance companies, media. The board chair thought HOA authority protected her. She's about to learn that no position protects predators from accountability. This changed everything. No longer just about one assault, about exposing decades of predation, about making sure the pool committee chair lost everything: freedom, reputation, access to children forever. About ensuring Sophia saw justice done for what was taken from her. Patricia Chen called me 2 days after Dr. Foster's evaluation. "Mr. Reed, we need to meet. Away from Riverside Heights. I have more evidence. Things I've been too afraid to share until now." We met at a coffee shop 15 miles outside the neighborhood. Neutral territory, where the former educator's influence couldn't reach. Patricia arrived carrying a laptop and a thick folder, looking like she'd aged 5 years since our last conversation. "I told you I documented Diane's interactions with teenage girls. What I didn't tell you was how extensive my records are." She opened the laptop. "I'm a pediatric nurse. I know predatory patterns when I see them. So I started keeping detailed logs 2 years ago when I first witnessed concerning behavior." She pulled up a spreadsheet. Dates, times, victim names, descriptions of interactions, witnesses present, outcomes. 18 confirmed incidents over 24 months. Girls photographed without parental knowledge. Girls isolated in changing rooms. Girls who came out crying or visibly uncomfortable, all aged 13 to 16. All targeted when parents weren't immediately present. I reviewed the data. The pattern was meticulous. The pool committee chair had operated like she was running a systematic operation, identifying victims, creating opportunities, documenting them under guise of HOA enforcement. "Patricia, why didn't you give this to police immediately?" Her hands were shaking. "Because buried in these files is evidence that I was complicit, that I saw what was happening and did nothing, that I'm a mandated reporter who failed to report child abuse for 2 years." She looked at me with something like desperation. "Mr. Reed, I could lose my nursing license, could face charges for failure to report, but after what happened to Sophia, after learning about Dr. Foster's evaluation, I can't stay silent anymore." She opened the folder. Printed photographs. "These are screenshots from the HOA shared drive. The board chair uploaded pool compliance documentation, monthly. Look at the file names." I examined them. Each photo labeled with a girl's name, age, date, and violation type. But the violations were all subjective. Insufficient coverage, inappropriate fit, immodest styling. All terminology Diane had created herself. 47 photos total, all teenage girls, all in swimwear, all taken without their knowledge that photos would be stored and shared with board members. Patricia's voice cracked. "I saw these files 2 years ago. Knew immediately it was inappropriate. But the former vice principal framed it as necessary documentation for enforcement. And I accepted that framing because opposing her meant risking David's college prospects. "You have access to the HOA shared drive? I'm board treasurer. I have administrative access to all digital files." She pulled up more documents. "And I found something else. Email thread from 3 years ago when Diane first proposed the pool rules amendment. Look at her justification." The emails showed the board chair arguing for modesty enforcement authority. But buried in the thread was her real motivation. Teenage girls' swimwear choices have become increasingly provocative. Without committee authority to verify appropriate coverage, we cannot maintain family-friendly pool environment. She sexualized teenage girls from the start, I realized. Framed their normal swimwear as provocative, used that framing to justify inspection authority. There's more. Board meeting minutes from when the amendment passed. 3 members voted against it initially, said it was too invasive, that HOA shouldn't police children's bodies. Diane threatened to resign as pool chair if the amendment didn't pass. The board caved because finding replacement volunteers is difficult. Patricia pulled up more files, financial records. The former educator spent HOA funds on digital camera equipment, claimed it was for violation documentation. But look at the specifications: high zoom capability, image stabilization for candid photography. She purchased spy camera technology using community money. To photograph teenage girls without their knowledge. Yes. and I approved the expenditure as treasurer because she framed it as necessary enforcement equipment. I've been enabling this for 2 years by approving her budgets, staying silent about her behavior, maintaining board solidarity while she preyed on children. Patricia, this evidence proves systematic institutional abuse using HOA structure as cover, proves the board chair engineered the entire system to facilitate predation, proves I and other board members were complicit through our silence. She closed the laptop. I'm prepared to testify, to provide all documentation, to admit my failure to protect these girls, to face whatever professional consequences come from 2 years of mandatory reporting violations. Why now? Why finally break silence? Because Dr. Foster's evaluation showed Sophia lost her connection to her deceased mother's memory, because the pool where Vanessa taught her daughter to swim is now associated with trauma instead of love. Patricia met my eyes. I have twin daughters. If someone had destroyed their connection to me through assault, I'd want every person who could have stopped it to face consequences, including the people who stayed silent. I looked at the evidence she'd provided, spreadsheets documenting predation, photos proving systematic collection, emails showing premeditation, financial records proving misuse of HOA funds, board minutes proving other members knew something was wrong. The pool committee chair's predation was completely exposed, and Patricia Chen, conflicted witness who'd chosen silence for 2 years, had finally provided the evidence that would destroy any defense the former educator tried to mount. I met with Assistant DA Marcus Chen the next morning. County Prosecutor's Office, conference room filled with evidence files, security footage queued on monitors, Patricia's documentation spread across the table. Mr. Reed, in 15 years prosecuting crimes against children, I've never seen a case this thoroughly documented. Chen was reviewing the timeline Jessica and I had compiled. Video of premeditation, audio of the assault, live attorney witness, pattern evidence spanning 3 years, victim testimony from multiple families, insider documentation from board member, financial records proving misuse of funds. This is overwhelming. What are we looking at for charges? Multiple counts. Starting with Sophia, sexual battery against a child under 16, false imprisonment during the assault, contributing to delinquency of a minor. Each carries significant prison time in Georgia. What about the other victims? Chen pulled up Patricia's spreadsheet. Elena Martinez, the Thompson twins, Sarah Wu. We have confirmed testimony from 4 additional victims who experienced similar forced changing room inspections. Each incident constitutes separate sexual battery charge. We're looking at 5 counts minimum, possibly more as investigation continues. The photos found on her computer? 32 images of minors in swimwear, collected without parental consent, stored in hidden folder, all girls aged 13 to 16. Georgia law prohibits possession of images of minors in states of undress when collected for prurient purposes. The context, hidden folder, specific age targeting, no legitimate enforcement purpose, proves prurient intent. That's another felony charge. And the systematic abuse? That's where your professional expertise helps us structure this case. Chen looked at me. You've prosecuted institutional predators for 12 years, teachers, coaches, religious leaders. You know how to prove pattern and practice. Help me build this the way you'd build it. I pulled up my case files, showed Chen the framework I'd developed over years of representing child victims. Predators using institutional authority follow patterns. First, they engineer access, create rules, policies, or situations that give them legitimate reasons to be alone with children. Diane wrote the Pool Rules Amendment specifically to justify inspecting teenage girls. Proves premeditation. Second, they normalize the behavior. Make victims believe the inappropriate contact is required, standard procedure, something they must accept. The former vice principal told girls that compliance inspections were HOA policy, that all teenagers had to submit. Grooming through authority. Third, they isolate victims, create situations where children are vulnerable, where parents aren't present, where it's adult's word against child's. I pulled up the security footage timestamps. Every assault occurred when parents had left the pool area. Diane stalked her targets, waited for isolation opportunities, then struck. Your footage documents that stalking behavior. Fourth, they collect trophies, photos, videos, documentation that lets them relive the predation. I showed him the folder structure on the board chair's computer. 32 photos, meticulously organized, labeled with names and ages. That's trophy collection. Chen made notes. This framework turns isolated incidents into systematic predation case. Shows the former educator wasn't enforcing rules. She was running a calculated operation to access minors' bodies. Exactly. And it makes the pattern unmistakable to juries. One incident could be misunderstanding, but when you show the engineering, the grooming, the stalking, the trophy collection, juries recognize predator behavior. What about her defense? She'll claim good faith HOA enforcement? Impossible. The rules she wrote were designed to create access. The inspections violated basic child protection standards. No legitimate pool enforcement requires adults to examine children's bodies in private changing rooms, and the trophy photos destroy any good faith claim. Chen pulled up the HOA shared drive evidence Patricia had provided. The fact that she uploaded these photos to board server, labeled them compliance documentation, that actually strengthens our case. She was so confident in her authority that she didn't even hide what she was doing from other board members, which proves she'd normalized the predation within the institutional structure, made it seem like standard procedure. We're also coordinating with Child Protective Services. They're investigating whether this constitutes institutional child abuse requiring systemic intervention. Chen showed me CPS report. They're recommending that Riverside Heights HOA be required to implement mandatory child protection policies, background checks for anyone with access to minors, supervision requirements preventing adults from being alone with children. Court-ordered institutional reform. Yes. And we're working with the school district. Diane Hartwell was vice principal at Northside High for 28 years. We're reviewing any complaints filed against her during that time, interviewing former students, checking if predatory pattern extends back decades. My phone buzzed, Detective Morrison. Marcus, school district found something. 3 complaints filed against Diane during her time as VP. All involved inappropriate comments about female students' clothing, all dismissed as school dress code enforcement. We're interviewing the students, now adults, to see if there's more. I showed Chen the text. The predation could span 30 years. Pool committee chair position just gave her access when she retired from education. Then we're building this as career predator case. Decades of using institutional authority, first as educator, then as HOA official, to access and abuse minors. Chen started organizing the charges. Count 1 through 5, sexual battery against minors, Sophia Reed, Elena Martinez, Thompson twins, Sarah Wu. Count 6 through 37, possession of images of minors for prurient purposes, 32 photos. Count 38, pattern of institutional child abuse. Count 39, misuse of HOA funds for predatory equipment. Count 40, conspiracy to commit sexual battery through institutional authority. Prison time? If convicted on all counts, we're looking at 25 to 40 years. At 52 years old, that's effectively life sentence. Chen closed the file. Mr. Reed, the former educator, thought HOA authority protected her from consequences. We're about to show her that outside authority, prosecutors, police, CPS, courts, protects children from predators, regardless of what institutional position they hold. The insurance carrier's response came 48 hours after the DA filed formal charges, certified letter to every Riverside Heights homeowner. RE, cancellation of liability coverage, predatory conduct by HOA official. Effective immediately, liability coverage for Riverside Heights Homeowners Association is terminated. Our investigation confirms that pool committee chair Diane Hartwell used her position to commit sexual battery against multiple minors over a 3-year period. Our policy explicitly excludes coverage for sexual misconduct, assault, or criminal acts committed by HOA officials. Your association is uninsurable until Ms. Hartwell is permanently removed and comprehensive child protection policies are implemented. 280 families received that letter, all learning simultaneously that their HOA had been operating a predatory scheme disguised as pool enforcement. My phone started ringing within an hour. Parents who'd seen Diane photograph their daughters, who'd been told it was violation documentation, who'd dismissed their children's discomfort as teenage sensitivity. Mrs. Martinez called first. Mr. Reed, I just read the charges against the former vice principal. Elena is listed as a victim, but she never told me. I never knew. Elena was 15. An adult in authority told her the inspection was HOA policy. She believed she had to comply. My daughter was assaulted, and I didn't protect her because I thought HOA officials had legitimate authority. Her voice broke. How many of us missed this? How many parents didn't know? By evening, local news was running the story. former school administrator charged with decades of child sexual abuse through institutional authority. The coverage included security footage. Jessica and I had released edited portions showing Diane stalking Sophia, timing her approach for when I'd left, isolating my daughter. The predatory pattern visible to anyone watching. National news picked it up the next day. Georgia HOA official accused of using pool rules to assault teenage girls. The story went viral. Parents across the country sharing experiences of HOA officials who'd overstepped boundaries, made children uncomfortable, used enforcement authority inappropriately. As Protect Kids, from HOAs started trending. Disability and child advocacy organizations amplified it, posted educational content about how predators use institutional positions to access victims, how to recognize grooming behavior, when to report mandatory reporters who fail to protect children. Then, the school district released their findings. Investigation into former Vice Principal Diane Hartwell. Our review of records from 1996-2024 has identified 7 formal complaints filed by parents regarding Ms. Hartwell's inappropriate focus on female students' clothing. All complaints were dismissed at the time as dress code enforcement. We are now interviewing former students to determine if predatory behavior occurred during her tenure as administrator. We apologize to any victims who were not believed or protected. 7 complaints over 28 years. All dismissed because Diane framed predation as policy enforcement. All opportunities to stop her that were missed because institutional authority was trusted over children's discomfort. Detective Morrison coordinated contact with the former students. 3 agreed to come forward. Sarah Thompson, now 31, was 16 when the board chair was her vice principal. Ms. Hartwell called me to her office because my skirt was too short, made me stand in front of her while she measured the hem, then told me to turn around so she could verify appropriate coverage from all angles. I felt violated but thought it was normal school discipline. Jennifer Wu, now 28. She photographed me in PE class, said it was for dress code violation documentation. I was wearing regulation gym shorts. The photo focused on my legs. I told my parents and they complained, but the school said it was standard enforcement procedure. Amanda Chen, now 25, Patricia's niece. That's why Patricia knew Diane's behavior was predatory. She'd watched her do similar things to me in high school. When Patricia saw the same pattern at the pool, she knew. But she stayed silent because of the college recommendations. Because family reputation mattered more than protecting other girls. 3 more victims, 3 more counts. The predation spanning not 3 years, but 3 decades. Child Protective Services released their institutional abuse findings. Riverside Heights HOA operated without adequate child protection policies, allowing pool committee chair to have unsupervised access to minors, to photograph children without parental consent, and to conduct inspections that constituted sexual assault. We recommend court-ordered reforms, mandatory background checks, prohibition on adults being alone with minors during HOA activities, parental consent requirements for any photography, independent child safety ombudsman position funded by HOA. The community held emergency meeting at the pool. Media cameras lined the back. Families packed the space where Diane had stalked their daughters. Patricia Chen stood at the front, pediatric nurse who'd finally broken silence. I'm here to apologize. I witnessed the former educator's predatory behavior for 2 years and stayed silent because I was afraid of losing her support for my son's college applications. My silence enabled her to continue assaulting children. To the families whose daughters were victimized while I did nothing, I'm sorry. Elena Martinez's mother spoke next. My daughter was 15 when she was assaulted in that changing room. She came home crying and I asked what was wrong. She said the pool chair made her feel uncomfortable during a compliance check. I told her to be respectful of HOA authority. I didn't protect her because I trusted the system. 4 more mothers stood, all with teenage daughters, all describing similar experiences, all realizing too late that discomfort was warning sign of predation. The board chair's systematic abuse was completely exposed, victims spanning decades, outside authority converging from every direction, prosecutors, police, CPS, insurance investigators, media, child advocates, all because she'd assaulted the one child whose father had the expertise to recognize institutional predation and the technology to document it perfectly. The Child Protective Services investigation concluded 3 weeks after the former educator's arrest. I sat in CPS Director Michael Foster's office reviewing their findings. Comprehensive Institutional Abuse Report, 87 pages documenting systematic failure to protect minors. Mr. Reed, this is the most extensive predatory operation we've documented in a community organization. Foster pulled up the report. Diane Hartwell engineered an entire system, wrote rules granting herself inspection authority, purchased surveillance equipment with HOA funds, normalized inappropriate contact with minors, maintained trophy collection, operated for years because institutional structure gave her legitimacy. How many confirmed victims total? 11 from the pool, 7 from her time as vice principal, 18 victims over 30 years that we've confirmed. But the real number is likely higher. Many adult survivors don't come forward. Many families never recognized what happened as abuse. The CPS recommendations were extensive. Mandatory background checks for all HOA board members, prohibition on adults being alone with children during any HOA activity, parental consent required for any photography of minors, independent child safety officer position funded by HOA for 5 years, annual training on recognizing predatory behavior, complete rewrite of pool policies. We're recommending the court order these reforms as condition of allowing the HOA to operate pool facilities. Without them, the pool should remain closed. That afternoon, 9 families gathered at my law office, parents whose daughters had been targeted by the pool committee chair, all preparing to file civil lawsuits. Elena Martinez's parents spoke first. Our daughter was 15. She trusted the former vice principal because she was an educator, an authority figure. When Elena told us she felt uncomfortable after the inspection, we dismissed it as teenage sensitivity. We should have protected her. The Thompson family. Our twins were photographed in their swimwear at least 8 times. Diane told them it was violation documentation. They believed her because adults don't usually lie about official procedures. Now they're both in therapy, dealing with the violation of having their bodies scrutinized and documented by someone they trusted. Sarah Wu's father. My daughter just turned 14 when she was assaulted, same age as Sophia. The board chair waited until my wife and I left the pool, then approached. Sarah's in Dr. Foster's care now, struggling with the same PTSD Sophia has. The pool that was supposed to be fun is now associated with trauma. Mrs. Henderson, whose daughter was one of the vice principal's victims from high school. Jennifer was 16, a junior. Diane photographed her in PE class, claimed dress code violation. Jennifer told us she felt violated. We complained to the school. They dismissed it as standard enforcement. Now we know it was predation that the institution protected. I'd prepared a class action framework. We're suing Diane Hartwell personally, the HOA for negligent supervision, the board members who enabled her behavior, and the school district for the historical complaints they dismissed. We're seeking damages for psychological trauma, therapy costs, loss of safe spaces, and punitive damages to send message that institutions can't protect predators. What are we looking at financially? Diane will be bankrupt. The HOA's insurance already dropped coverage. Any judgment comes from reserves and potentially board members personally. The school district has deeper pockets, but will fight liability for 30-year-old complaints. The real value isn't money, it's forcing institutional accountability. That evening, Riverside Heights held community vote. Emergency HOA election to remove remaining board members and elect new leadership committed to child protection. Patricia Chen ran for president on platform of transparency and protection. I failed our children for 2 years by staying silent. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to let me spend the next term implementing every reform CPS recommends and ensuring no predator ever uses HOA authority to hurt children again. She won by 73% of votes cast. Her first act as president, permanent ban on Diane Hartwell from all HOA property, revocation of all access credentials, formal apology to every victim and their families. Second act, immediate implementation of CPS recommendations without waiting for court order. Third act, renaming the pool Vanessa's Pool in honor of my wife, with plaque dedicating it to families who find joy and healing in water. The school district settled with the 3 former students from the board chair's time as vice principal. Undisclosed financial terms, formal apology, commitment to review all historical complaints involving inappropriate conduct by administrators. Georgia State Bar filed disciplinary action against Richard Morrison, the HOA attorney who'd advised Diane that compliance inspections were legally permissible without ever asking what the inspections entailed or recognizing obvious child endangerment. The convergence was complete. Police investigation, prosecutor building case, CPS institutional abuse findings, insurance cancellation, civil lawsuits filed, community organizing and reform. school district accountability, professional disciplinary action against enabling attorney. Every outside authority responding to protect children from institutional predator. Detective Morrison called with update. Marcus, we've identified 2 more potential victims from Diane's time at the pool. Families who moved away before the assault on Sophia, but whose daughters experienced similar inspections. They're willing to testify. 20 victims total? That we know of. The former educator operated for 30 years. There could be dozens more who never reported, never recognized it as abuse, never connected their discomfort to predatory behavior. 10 days until trial. 20 confirmed victims. Video evidence. Pattern spanning decades. Outside authority converged from every direction. The pool committee chair, who'd thought institutional authority protected her, was about to face the full weight of every system designed to protect children from predators. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled with families whose daughters had been targeted, media cameras along the back wall, child advocacy organizations monitoring proceedings. Judge Catherine Bradford presiding over what she'd called one of the most disturbing institutional predation cases in Georgia history. Diane Hartwell sat at the defense table in civilian clothes, trying to project the authority she'd wielded as vice principal and pool committee chair. But her expression had shifted from confident to trapped as the evidence mounted. Assistant DA Marcus Chen opened with the security footage. The courtroom watched Diane arrive at the pool, scan for victims, lock onto Sophia swimming alone, wait for me to leave, then approach with predatory precision. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching a predator stalking her victim. Notice how the defendant checks surroundings, calculates timing, waits 15 minutes to ensure the father has left. This isn't HOA enforcement. This is calculated assault. He played the audio, Diane's voice ordering Sophia to the changing room, Sophia's quiet compliance. Then the words that made several jurors visibly react. Remove the swimsuit so I can verify fabric thickness and coverage. Turn around. Let me see the back. Jessica Park testified next. My law partner, who'd witnessed the assault in real time through security feed. I was reviewing Mr. Reed's security footage for an unrelated property case when I saw the defendant approach Sophia. I heard her order the child to the changing room. I heard her demand Sophia remove her swimsuit. Jessica's voice was controlled, professional. I immediately called 911 and Mr. Reed. I watched a 14-year-old being forced to strip while claiming HOA authority, and I documented every second because I knew this was criminal assault. And in your professional opinion as criminal defense attorney, was this legitimate enforcement? Absolutely not. No HOA rule authorizes adults to inspect children's bodies. No community policy permits forcing minors to disrobe. The defendant committed sexual battery while using institutional authority as cover. Patricia Chen took the stand, pediatric nurse who documented the pattern for 2 years. I witnessed the former vice principal target 18 girls over 24 months, all aged 13 to 16, all isolated when parents weren't present, all subjected to changing room inspections or photographed without consent. Patricia's testimony was devastating. As mandated reporter, I should have contacted authorities immediately. Instead, I stayed silent because the defendant threatened my son's college prospects. My failure enabled her to continue assaulting children. Chen displayed the 32 photos found on Diane's computer. Images of teenage girls in swimwear, labeled by name and age, organized in hidden folders. Why would a pool committee chair maintain a private collection of photographs of teenage girls if enforcement was the actual purpose? She wouldn't. Patricia looked at the board chair. This is trophy collection, predator behavior. Elena Martinez testified. Now, 19. I was 15 when she made me strip in the changing room. Said it was HOA compliance check, that I had to submit or face pool ban and family fines. I cried the whole time while she examined my body and took notes. I didn't tell my parents because I thought I'd done something wrong. The Thompson twins. Sarah Wu. 3 victims from Diane's time as high school administrator, each describing similar experiences. Isolated by authority figure, forced to submit to inappropriate inspections, made to believe compliance was required. Dr. Amanda Foster testified about the psychological damage. Sophia Reed can no longer swim in the pool where her deceased mother taught her. The space that was her primary grief coping mechanism is now associated with trauma. The defendant didn't just assault this child, she destroyed her connection to her dead mother's memory. The defense tried to claim good faith HOA enforcement. Richard Morrison argued that pool rules granted inspection authority, that Diane reasonably believed she was performing her duties. Chen destroyed it on cross-examination. Mr. Morrison, you advised Ms. Hartwell that compliance inspections were legally permissible. Did you ever ask what these inspections entailed? I assumed standard verification procedures. Did you ask if inspections involved forcing minors to remove clothing in private changing rooms? The pool rules didn't specify methodology, because no legitimate pool rule would authorize adults to inspect children's bodies. Yet you provided legal cover for sexual assault by failing to ask basic questions about what your client was actually doing. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all 40 counts. Sexual battery against 11 minors, possession of images for prurient purposes, pattern of institutional child abuse, misuse of HOA funds, conspiracy to commit sexual battery through institutional authority. The former educator sat motionless as Judge Bradford read the verdicts. The woman who'd wielded authority over children for 30 years was finally facing consequences from outside authority she couldn't control. Criminal justice system, prosecutors, police, victims' testimony, documented evidence. Patricia Chen was crying in the gallery. Elena's mother held her daughter. Sophia sat beside me, watching the predator who'd violated her being convicted on every charge. Justice through outside authority intervention. Every system designed to protect children converging to hold institutional predator accountable. Sentencing in 30 days. But the verdict alone was devastating. 40 felony convictions. Sex offender registration guaranteed, decades in prison likely. The pool committee chair's reign of predation was over. Judge Bradford sentenced Diane Hartwell 6 weeks after the conviction. The courtroom was filled again. Victims, families, advocates, media. The former vice principal stood to hear her fate. Ms. Hartwell, you used your positions as educator and HOA official to prey on children for 30 years. You engineered systems that gave you access to minors. You photographed teenage girls without consent. You forced children to strip in changing rooms while claiming institutional authority. You collected images as trophies. You normalized predation within organizations that trusted you. Judge Bradford looked at the 20 confirmed victims sitting in the gallery. You destroyed these children's sense of safety. You violated spaces that should have been joyful, and you did it while hiding behind the legitimacy of institutional positions. On 40 counts of sexual battery, possession of images for prurient purposes, and institutional child abuse, I sentence you to 35 years in Georgia State Prison. You will be required to register as sex offender for life. You are permanently banned from any contact with minors, from working with children, and from holding any position of authority over vulnerable populations. 35 years. The pool committee chair was 52. She'd be 87 before eligibility for parole. The board chair, who'd thought HOA authority protected her, was led from the courtroom in handcuffs for the last time. 3 months later, I took Sophia to the pool. First time since the assault. The community had renamed it during a dedication ceremony. Vanessa's Pool now, with bronze plaque reading, "Dedicated to families who find healing and joy in water," in memory of Vanessa Reed, who taught her daughter that love transcends even death. Sophia stood at the edge, looking at the northeast corner, her and Vanessa's spot, where her mother had held her in the water 3 years ago, teaching strokes, building confidence, creating the last joyful memories before cancer won. Dad, what if I can't? What if the pool still feels like where the former educator? Then we leave. No pressure. But this pool belongs to you and Mom, not to the predator who tried to take it away. Sophia took 1 step toward the water, then another, touched the surface. The physical memory of Vanessa teaching her, guiding her, loving her through movement and water. She got in, started swimming, using the strokes her mother taught her, reclaiming the space that had been violated. I watched my daughter heal, watched her reconnect with Vanessa's legacy in the pool that now bore her mother's name, watched the trauma begin to transform back into joy. The community had implemented every CPS recommendation, background checks for all board members, no adults alone with children during HOA activities, parental consent for any photography, independent child safety officer monitoring all youth programs, annual training on recognizing predatory behavior. Patricia Chen, now HOA president, ran the child protection program personally. Pediatric nurse who'd stayed silent for 2 years, now ensuring no predator could use community authority to hurt children again. The civil lawsuits settled. Riverside Heights paid $2.3 million distributed among victim families. The school district paid additional settlements to the former students the board chair had targeted. Richard Morrison, the HOA attorney who'd provided legal cover without asking questions, lost his law license. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was watching Sophia swim freely in water her mother loved. It was seeing 11 families' daughters reclaim spaces that had been violated. It was knowing that outside authority, police, prosecutors, CPS, courts, insurance companies, media, community reform, had converged to protect children when institutional authority became predatory. I'm a family law attorney. For 12 years, I've represented children abused by authority figures who thought positions protected them from consequences. Teachers, coaches, youth pastors, predators who used institutional legitimacy to access victims. I never imagined I'd use that expertise to protect my own daughter, to document assault with security cameras the predator didn't know existed, to build the case that sent the former educator to prison for 3 decades. But that's exactly what happened, and it happened because I recognized institutional predation when I saw it, because Jessica witnessed the assault live and immediately called police, because outside authority responded, every system designed to protect children working together to hold the pool committee chair accountable. Diane Hartwell thought HOA rules gave her permission to examine teenage girls' bodies, thought 30 years as vice principal had taught her how to hide predation behind enforcement, thought institutional authority made her untouchable. She was wrong. Outside authority intervention destroyed her completely. Criminal conviction, sex offender registration, decades in prison, professional destruction, financial ruin, community reforms ensuring no one could follow her pattern. And my daughter, who'd lost her mother to cancer, who'd found solace in the pool where Vanessa taught her to swim, who'd been targeted by a predator using community authority, was swimming again, freely, joyfully, in water that now carried her mother's name. If you want more stories of families standing up to authority abuse and protecting children from predators, hit subscribe right now, share your story in the comments, and let me know where you're watching from.